Initially मैंने आपको बताया था when we talk about the data, so broadly speaking, data is classified as two types. One is the structured data and other one is the unstructured. Structured data meaning the data what you can store in a tabular format, tables. And unstructured meaning which you cannot store in tabular format, right? Example, you have all object storage data, right? Binary data, text or graphics, audio file, video file, right? ये सभी binary data. So we cannot have them stored in a tabular format. But structured is something organized data which you can store in tabular format and you can query the, the data in the tables, right? So when we talk about structured data, this is again of two types. That is, one is the SQL, another one is NoSQL. SQL databases, we also call them as relational databases, right? NoSQL is non-relational databases. So in relational databases, we are using SQL, that is structured query language commands, right? So basically here actually what happens when you're going to design your table. So in a database, you can have at least one table or multiple tables, right? And if you are going to have multiple tables, so of course these tables do have a relation which is established based on primary keys. See, in a table, when you are going to store your data, suppose this is your table. So this table is much like you have the spreadsheet in Excel. It consists of rows and columns. Rows and columns. Every row here is an entry for a record. Right? For example, you have a student database or employee database. So when you're going to maintain that database in a table, so every entry what you make here in the table, that is known as a record, and every record will have the attributes which is described in these columns, right? For example, you have a student, so attributes, every student has got, suppose a roll number, right? Every student has got a name, every student is having a standard, right? Then subjects, date of joining, hobbies, right? All this stuff, these are all attributes. So when you're going to define this table, so well in advance, before you store any kind of data, you want to define the structure of this table, right? Which consists of the different, you can say, attributes, their data types, right? Their size, everything is going to be defined in advance. We call this as a table schema. This is table schema. So in case of SQL databases, the schema is well defined. Before you are going to make any data entry here, the schema needs to be defined well in advance. And moreover, once it is defined, this is fixed. Or you can say this is a resident nature, meaning you cannot change it later on. Once you start storing your data, you cannot modify this schema. This is resident, right? And second thing associated with SQL databases is that whatever entries you're going to maintain here in this table, they are more or less of the same type. For example, if I say that this is my student database, so all the entries are that of students only. The employee database, so all the entries are that of employees only. So these databases are going to be maintained, managed somewhere in database servers, right? So these database servers, if suppose you have to establish in your organization on your premises. So right from the scratch, you're going to specify everything, each and every component, the hardware, the operating system, right? The actual database, right? And to interact with this database, you need a database software or database engine, right? For example, you have SQL Server, right, from the Microsoft, or you have Oracle. So based on this, you must have heard about the names SQL Server or Oracle Server. In fact, these are database servers. So you're going to establish or you're going to maintain these database servers, right? SQL Server, Oracle Server in your premises. And once it is established, then you're going to do administrative tasks, right, related to taking the backups, or you are doing time to time updates and upgrades and restoration, replications, right? Accessibility, durability, all such things. These are all administrative tasks. So either you do this way, or else what you can do is you can use the fully managed service offered by Amazon. That's known as RDS. That is Relational Database Service. So using this service, you can maintain these database servers there in the cloud. Now these services are fully managed, meaning most of the administrative tasks, in fact everything, almost everything is going to be managed by this service itself, right? They are giving you a nice interface and all the features related to database management right from the scratch, deploying the hardware, operating system, right? Or database engines, everything you can manage through this RDS service, right? So in this lecture, or now onwards, the topics which are all about databases, we're going to see the features of these services. Three types of services are offered by Amazon, right? RDS is this one, which is for SQL databases, right? Similarly, we have one more service that is known as Redshift. Redshift is for, again, SQL databases, but this is for warehouse, data warehouses, right? And third type of services, DynamoDB, that is for NoSQL databases. So all these services, more or less, nature is same. That is, these are fully managed services. And through these services, you are going to administer database servers, SQL or NoSQL. So today we are going to make a beginning with Amazon RDS, right? We'll see some of the features and then we'll see practical deployment. All right. So this Amazon RDS, which is a web service that simplifies to set up, operate, and scale a relational database in the AWS cloud. So right from the scratch, you're going to do the setup. You're going to perform all the operations, and even you can scale up. Everything is going to be maintained through the single dashboard of RDS. Many of the common database administration tasks like taking the backups and patching and scaling and application, right? Streamlines the installation of database software. Database software, just like this, SQL Server or Oracle. So you can provision for installation, right? You can provision this infrastructure capacity, that's the hardware, right? Replicates data to increase availability, improve durability, meaning here also you have the replication, just like we had in S3. In S3, your data is replicated. Similarly, here also. So by way of replication only, you can ensure high availability and high durability. Right? Can scale up beyond a single database instance for read-heavy database workloads. Read-heavy. See, when we have this database server, so you are going to be the clients, technically SQL clients, right? So when you're going to connect to this database server, so basically two operations you're going to perform. One is either you're going to modify this database, you're going to add, or you're going to insert the records into this, right? You can call this as write operation. You write something, or you're going to retrieve the information from the existing database. We call this as read request. Either you're going to make a write request or read request. These are primarily the two things. So usually read request is more, usually, right? And for that, if read traffic is too much, and wherein we find that the single server is not sufficient, so it can scale up automatically, right? Especially for read heavy workloads. If read requests are more, so it can scale up, meaning it can create replicas. They are known as read replicas. Read replica mean that these are the replicas which are going to support only read request, not the write, right? Not for modification. Yes. So that feature is there, right? Automatically, read replicas are getting created, which can sustain the traffic related to read request. Clients connect to RDS using database endpoints for executing SQL commands or queries. So when you're going to deploy a database server, so a database endpoint is getting created. This endpoint is as good as saying, just like you have a DNS name or the IP address. So endpoint is the connectivity point, right? You as an SQL client, you are going to establish connectivity with the server through this database endpoint, which is getting generated. RDS is a managed service, I told you, meaning most of the administrative tasks, as we discussed, backups, patching, scaling. This is going to be performed by the service itself. As such, provider is going to do everything. So that is the reason that you as a user or administrator, you don't have shell access. Root access is not there. The way we have been doing with EC2 instances, if you create an EC2 instance, right, whether it's Windows or Linux. So later on, you were doing shell access. For doing shell access, either you're using SSH or you're doing RDP, right? But in this case, again, you are going to create a database instance, which is a kind of EC2 instance kind of thing. But you cannot have the shell access, right? Because you don't have any interpretive rights here. So this is a kind of restriction, right? And purposely it is there so that you can manage everything through the dashboard only. Because you don't have certain this shell access. So obviously there are certain system procedures, right, which require advanced privileges, which you cannot do, right? You are restricted from doing those some advanced system procedures which require those privileges of shared access. So which is missing out here, right? If you want to do that, if suppose you say that I'm going to manage everything on my own, then deploy right from the scratch everything. You create an EC2 instance, you specify the hardware, you take up the operating system, you install the database engine, right? Then have the databases copied over there, maintain everything, right? Security, updates, replication, durability, availability, everything you have to manage in that case, right? Or else use this managed service, RDS, right? So RDS as such, we are using this service to deploy a database instance, right? It's a kind of EC2 instance only. Yes, is this clear? All right, so next thing is database instance. It's an isolated database environment. See, it's just like an EC2 instance, right? That runs and manages database engine. Database engine, like SQL Server or Oracle, these are all database engine. Now these needs to be installed. RDS currently supports 6 database engines. Now RDS itself is providing you the support for installation of these database engines. So MySQL is one of them. PostgreSQL, MariaDB, Oracle, right? SQL Server, which is from the Microsoft. And Amazon itself is having its own proprietary product that's known as Amazon Aurora. So all these are database engines. They're doing the same job, same purpose, with slight variations, right? Of course, they're going to have the slight variations in the features and capabilities, but they are doing the same job. That is, they're going to manage the databases. They're on the servers. Databases are created and managed in database instance using SQL commands through RDS endpoint. As I told you, you're going to establish connectivity through RDS endpoint. You are going to be an SQL client. Technically, you are going to be SQL client. So for that, you're going to install some client software and get connected to this database server through this endpoint. Right? It is just like a DNS name. Yes. Once connectivity is established, then you are using SQL commands or SQL queries, right? And through those commands and queries, you're going to make either the read request or a write request. Okay. Next thing is licensing. Now there are certain products, certain database engines which require the licenses. Oracle, for example, or MicroSQL Server, these are not free products. They are commercial products, right? So whenever you're going to use them, if you want to create the instances using SQL Server or Oracle, so you have to have the licenses. So you have two approaches for these licenses. One is the license included. That is when you're going to pick up every resource from the cloud service provider. So it is providing you even licenses also. In that case, cost is going to be calculated. When the instance cost is going to be there, it includes licensing cost also, right? So in this case, license included meaning the license is held by AWS and is included in the RDS instance price. That is obvious. Or if you say, no, 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 I don't want this, right? I have my own license, I purchased it. So that also you can do, right? We call this concept as bring your own license, BYOL. So at the time of deploying an SQL server or Oracle server, you can specify the license, right? So either you have the RDS instance, which includes the license. Obviously, it will include the license cost. And if you say that you are going to have your own license, so that cost is going to be reduced and you provide your own license. That is possible. So both of these options are there, right? Next is backup. As we discussed that it's fully managed service. So one of the feature in fully managed is backup, right? So when you deploy this RDS instance or database instance, backups are going to be created. Two options are there. Backups, we call them snapshots. One is this automated snapshots, which are going to be created automatically. And you have the manual snapshot also, right? You can take the snapshot manually also, exactly the way we discussed in EC2 instance, right? So if you go for automated, automated is something which is by default. It is enabled by default, right? You have to disable it. If you don't want it, you have to disable it. Otherwise, by default, the moment you deploy a database instance, by default, a backup is also getting created. No, backup is different. Remember, replica is different, backup is different. Backup means that entire stuff what you have in your database server, especially the database, that's going to be backed up. And replica means that you are going to have a second copy of the running instance. That is replica. So here backups, automated backups are enabled by default. So when you create database instance, a backup is also going to be created. Yes, if you want to disable it, you can disable it, but by default it is enabled. So whatever backups are there, they are going to be retained. Now, how long they are going to be retained? That depends. How you configure the settings, right? So first thing is that these backups are going to happen on daily basis, right? At a user configurable time. You can define the time period. I want that this backup should happen every every midnight 12, right? Or 2 o'clock, something like that. So the time period what you specify for the snapshot, that's known as backup window, right? And these backups are going to be retained, right? Retained for a user configurable number of days. That's known as backup retention period. So how long they are going to be retained? It all depends on what retention period you have configured. It's all up to you. By default, the retention period is 1 day. That is every day backup is going to be there, right? And it's going to be retained only for 24 hours, right? After 24 hours, it's going to be deleted. But by that time, the next backup is going to be there already. But if you want to increase this retention period, so you can increase it maximum up to 35 days, right? That's the retention period. Deleting a database instance results in deletion of all automated backup snapshots. Now, this is one feature which you should know. Is suppose you're going to delete this instance. So whatever backups are there, snapshots are there, they're also getting deleted, but automatically, right? Manual snapshot is something different. Manual snapshot is going to be initiated by you manually, right? And you can have as many snapshots as you want, whenever you want. It is just like we discussed the snapshots in each instance, right? And these snapshots are going to be kept until the user explicitly deletes them. Meaning, as such, retention period is not defined here. Once you have the backup or snapshot, it will be there, unless you delete it, right? And if you delete your instance, so snapshots are not going to be deleted, right? Rather, you have to delete them manually, right? In case of automated snapshots, right, deleting a database instance results in deletion of all the backups. But this is not the case in manual. Manual snapshots are retained, right? And they will be deleted only when you are going to delete them specifically. Yes, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next is multi-zone deployment. These are all features now. So while deploying this service, you can specify this option of multi-zone deployment. As the name suggests, if you enable this option, multi-zone deployment, so what will happen? Deployment will happen in multiple zones. Meaning, if suppose we are creating an instance, database instance in one zone, a replica instance is also getting created into another zone, right? At the same time. And once you have the replicas, you can think of the benefits, right? So multi-zone deployment provides high availability and failover support, because having one copy and having two copies makes a difference. So availability increases because whatever request traffic is there, it can be distributed uh, amongst these servers. Now you have two instances. It provides and manages a synchronous standby replica in a different zone. So once you enable this feature, a standby. A standby means it's a kind of the backup, right? It can act. It can act as for a failover support, right? As long as this primary server is up, fine. But if suppose something goes wrong, so the standby is going to take the traffic. It is going to manage the traffic now. That's failover. RDS automatically fails over to the standby, so that database operations can resume quickly without administrative intervention, meaning failover. Failover is going to happen, right? If suppose you have some planned database maintenance, right? If you are doing some maintenance activities here, so obviously primary server is not available, failover will be there. If you are doing some software patching, right? Or you reboot the primary instance, right? Bottom line is that if because of any reason this primary server is not available, so either you're doing patching or you're doing rebooting, or maybe there is some connectivity issue, right? Host fail हो गया है, कुछ भी हो सकता है, या पूरा zone भी अगर down हो गया, right? Because that's a major advantage. Multi-zone deployment, right? This is one zone, this is another zone. So if suppose the entire zone fails, right? So failover can be initiated, right? Yes. So that is the advantage, but the negative side you should know that it's going to be costly, it's chargeable. Read replica, as I just told you. Read replica. Replicas are created. It's just like auto scaling kind of thing, right? But in auto scaling, it's not the exact replica. It's going to be read replica, meaning this replica is going to support only read requests, not the write. Meaning in these replicas, you cannot modify the database. So RDS uses the PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB database engines built-in replication functionality. Meaning read replica is a built-in replication functionality which is there in RDS, and this is not something new. This feature is already there in the existing commercial products like PostgreSQL, MySQL, and MariaDB. It's already there, right? And what this feature does, it creates a special type of database instance. That's something known as read replica, right? From the source database instance. So you have a primary instance and read replicas are going to be created, right? So this feature is in RDS because these products, which are part of this RDS, they already have this kind of feature. Built-in application functionality is there in all these products. Reduces loading on this database instance by routing read heavy database queries to read replica. So जैसा मैंने पहले बताया, when the request is being received from the SQL clients, if read request is tremendous, so read replicas are getting created. Okay, which can handle the read traffic only, because normally read request is more as compared to the write one. Now, databases are highly secured, and here actually RDS is recommending you various different ways of security, various different levels are there. Right. First thing is deploy your RDS instances in private subnet. That is when you're going to create a VPC, so provision for a private subnet, right? And private subnet, you know, हमने lab भी किया था, private subnet बनाए थे, wherein actually access is going to be very limited now, right? You can control who can access, who can get inside, right? So this is one thing. It's not exposed this way. We are ensuring that databases are not exposed to the public network, right? Next, create a database subnet group that predefines which subnets are available for RDS deployment. So you can create database subnet group, meaning if suppose in your VPC you have multiple subnets, right? Multiple, this is your VPC, or you have multiple subnets. So you can predefine here the subnets wherein you want that your database instances should get deployed. If any time replication is happening, so it should not happen here and there, rather only in select subnets. So suppose I say that this is one subnet, this is another subnet, right? Let's group them together. We will call it as database subnet group. So we can define the database subnet group, and once you define, so it will ensure that your database instances are going to be deployed only in these specified subnets, right? Nowhere else. So it will never happen that you have the deployment somewhere in a working subnet where other users are also working, right? So it's a kind of confinement basically. Then for security, we can always configure ACLs, security groups, right? ACL, access control list, which is there on the border of subnet. Security groups are there at the instance level, right? And you can define the filtration rules. At database level, right? When you create the databases, so we can create the users at database level, right? Then हम बोलेंगे database users. So when you are getting connected to database instance, finally you as a database user, you have to authenticate yourself, right? By providing username and password, you can even define the permissions. Then only they will be connecting to the databases. So what I mean is that you have the traffic filtration rules at the subnet level, at the device level, and even at database level. Then on the top of that, you can protect the confidentiality of your data by using multiple encryption capability, which is offered by Amazon. Same, just like we discussed in S3. So whatever data is there, whether the data is being uploaded or it's downloaded or it's there on the servers, you can ensure encryption, right? So in-transit encryption is there using SSL, right? So that you can encrypt your data when it is flowing over the network. At rest, right, you can ensure data encryption using the keys, encryption keys which are offered by the provider, right? This is Amazon Key Management Service, KMS. We have transparent data encryption, right? So you can enable these keys to encrypt your data when it is being maintained on these servers. But once you enable this encryption, so as a result of that, all the logs, all the backups, snapshots are going to be encrypted, right? In future, right? Whatever logs are getting generated, you are taking the snapshots, they're all going to be encrypted. Yes. So these are some of the features. Okay. So using this service, one thing you can make out. We are going to deploy a database instance in Amazon Cloud, right? Once you create it, so an RDS endpoint is getting generated, and you can connect using this RDS endpoint. Okay. So let us see. Let's use this service to deploy. I'll just log in. I'll show you one small lab. And log into the account and use this RDS, right? It's a simple interface in which you can specify all the options. Let us see. So go with this RDS. So here, this is the dashboard, and you can see database instance. Right now, we don't have any database instance, right? If I want to create, here I can create database, meaning create database instance, and you can check out the options. See, right from the beginning, standard create or easy create. So you can make out standard create means you are going to specify each and every option here on your own. Easy create means most of the options. It is best practice configuration. Some configuration options can be changed after the database is created. So most of the options are going to be answered, right? Which you can change later on. We'll be using standard create. Now these are the database engines, and which are supported into this service. When you're going to create your database instance, so you can specify which database engine you want to use, right? Now, this is Aurora. This is the product of Amazon itself, right? Which is MySQL compatible. Another PostgreSQL compatible, right? That is as a client, if suppose you are using PostgreSQL or you are using MySQL, so you can migrate to the Aurora accordingly, right? Then MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and SQL Server from Microsoft. So in our case, we'll be using MySQL because this is freely available, right? Features are all same, more or less, with slight variations. They are doing the same job. That is, we are creating database servers. So let's proceed with this MySQL, and here you can specify the version. I'm going ahead with the default, right? I have proceeded with the version as of now. Template, we are using it for free tier. This one. The moment I select free tier, so most of the options are going to be disabled, right? Because they are not available in free tier, right? So, for example, multi-zone deployment option is not there now. Then this is a setting, right? For your database instance, the name, database one, okay, let it be default. Credential, now these credentials are for databases. Ultimately, when you connect to the database, you have to authenticate yourself by providing name and password. So username it suggests admin, right? Let's see. Database instance admin and the password. All right. So this username and password you have to specify when you're going to get connect to the database instance. Then instance configuration, database instance class, it is using dbt3 micro, right? Same just like we did in EC2, right? And in this we can use this one also. 1 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, dbt2 micro to reduce on the cost. Storage, minimum size is going to be 20 GB, right? Minimum is 20 GB, right? You can scale up also, right? Maybe up to this was 6,000 GB also. Storage auto scaling if you want. I don't want right now. Connectivity, don't connect to an easy to compute resource. Okay, we will be connecting it. VPC, I'm using default. This is when database subnet to default. Public accessibility. Now, if you want to get connect to this database instance via internet, then you have to say yes, right? But this is for security, right? Then firewall, right now I'm proceeding with the default option no. Then security group, again I'm using the existing one, default, right? Zone, you can specify the zone where you want to have it deployed, and say 1A. Next, everything else default. Additional configuration. Now this is the default port number 3306, right? Database authentication is password authentication. Monitoring I don't want. In additional configuration, you can specify optional database name if you want. Like here I say demo DB, right? If you want, right? Otherwise, you can create it after one also. Backup, now this I told you, by default backup is there. I don't want to have the backup because it is going to take time also. Maintenance, I don't want right now. That's all. Of course, it is going to have the cost, right? It's not entirely freely available, right? Right, that's all. So all these options, what we have specified, it is just to create database server, right? And say create database. So when you're going to create it, it will take some time, right? So this is the name, database instance, creating. It's a instance only. Engine is MySQL, database engine. There's a zone, size, dbt2 micro, right? Free tier. This is a default VPC. Multi-zone deployment is not there because it is free tier. And we have specified the credential, username and password, right? This is username, this is the password, which I have to specify when I'm going to connect to it. So right now the scenario is that in the cloud, we have created MySQL server. This is your cloud, And here we have created a database instance using database engine MySQL, right? And now to establish connectivity, right now public accessibility is not there. So what can I do is I can do it within the cloud itself. Within the cloud, I'm going to deploy one more instance. This is going to be my EC2 instance now. So we'll deploy EC2 instance, a Linux machine, right? And in this Linux machine, we are going to install MySQL client. And using this MySQL client, we'll establish connectivity with this database server. Here, a endpoint is getting created. So using this endpoint, we'll connect. Once it is connected, then you can create the databases and tables and records, all such things. Those are SQL commands. I'm simply going to tell you how to deploy it and how to connect it. So it will take some time, about 5 to 8 minutes probably. Just wait. So now I'm going to create an EC2 instance and have it configured as SQL client. Launch instance. This is my SQL client. I'm going to use Amazon Linux only. All over this Amazon Linux. Instance type T2 mic is fine. This is the key. And I'm going to use the default VPC only. Subnet, I'll select 1A. Security group, existing security group. And storage default. So here I installed MySQL manually. And with this is going to be MySQL client. All right. Meantime, this is ready now. Status is available. You see the details. So see, this is the endpoint which is created now, right? This is the port number, all the details, zone, VPC, subnet group, sublets, right? Public accessibility is not there. That's why I'm doing it internally. All right, let's see. So using this endpoint will establish the connectivity. So what are you going to do? You will say MySQL minus H and then point. Copy. Copy paste. Right, then minus U, username is admin, right? Minus P, that is going to be your port number 3306. Minus capital P is the password. Oh, I think options are reversed. So here it is going to be small p, and this should be the caps, I think. All right, password is admin 123. Yes, this is connected. All right, this is connected. This is MySQL prompt. Right, so from here I established connectivity with this MySQL server. Right, it authenticated. I provided username and password for database. And now you can use normal way the commands. Right. For example, show database. I think this is the command. Yes. DemoDB I specified. So this is created. Right. You can create your own database, you can create your own table. I have some sample commands also with me. Right. You can use this one also. Right. Show databases. Now to create a table, we'll create a database. Create database books DB. All right, I'll just copy paste. I will just show you that how it all works. Right. These commands are not compulsory, just for understanding purposes. I'm going to create a database. Right. I already specified the database, but here manually if you want to have it. So books DB number database हम create करेंगे, and this is created and verify show databases. So this is added up. All right. Now if you want to use this database, so command is use and name of database. Books DB. Now I'm to this books DB database. A database may contain single table, multiple table. To view the tables, command is show tables. So it is all working fine, right? Show tables. Nothing is there, it's all empty. If you want to create your own table, see, this is one sample here. Create a table and name of the table is books. And these are going to be different different columns or fields. Book ID, title, author, published date, description. These are all fields. Just copy pasted. And now a table is created. Right? Now if I say show tables, so it is there. हमने table create की है, जिसका नाम है books. And if you want to see what this book contains, this table contains. So select star from books. Nothing. It's a blank table. Table में कोई record insert करना है. So command है यहाँ पे insert into this table books. Two values, title and author. All right. Let us see. So a single entry will be there to this table. And Yes, this is successful. And now select star from books. It shows you. So right now I'm working in this database server. Okay. And you can connect it from anywhere as such, depending on the permissions. Yes. बताइए, is this clear? Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That is so fast, right? Otherwise, it is going to take so much of time. But through this service, things are automated. Yes. All right. So you can use your own commands also, not necessary. You may say leftly, show करने के लिए रखे हुए हैं, but you can use. Right? SQL वगैरह पढ़ा है पहले आपने कॉलेज में है कुछ ऐसा database related?
Yes, sir. Third semester में पढ़े थे.
हाँ ठीक है, कर सकते हैं. All right, चलिए कल मिलते हैं same time. Proceed with the next topic. All right.